Well, it's that time of year we got to start catching up on some men's volleyball, and things are crazy hot and heavy in the Mountain Pacific Sports Federation, the MPSF. We go to former MPSF Coach of the Year, Bill Ferguson, in Los Angeles. And Bill, man, it's top heavy out there. 6 of the top 9 teams in the latest AVCA poll are in the MPSF, and you look at the records of UCLA 6-0, Stanford 5-1, and then everybody else just grinding. You know the feeling.
Yeah, I've been there, done that. I think there's some of it is, I think most of the MPSF is how we thought and how we talked about at the beginning of the year. I think the MPSF heaviness, if you will, in the rankings is a product of, I think, those cycles at Loyola and Lewis sort of kind of running out with guys graduating, turning pro, and all of that. And you had a lot of youth in the MPSF the last few years, and you still have some that's in very important places. You see the top couple teams have some young guys, which I think is making the MPSF real interesting. At UCLA, you've got the freshman phenom Micah Ma'a, who's running a 6'2" with Hagen Smith. And so they're doing a great job, and they've yet to really have to go to a traditional 5-1. So they got a couple different ways they can win there, and they've been running the table so far. At Stanford, you got Jordan Ewart, who's a freshman, starting outside hitter. He's kind of a lockdown, real good passing guy, pretty effective attacking and serving. He's been doing a wonderful job for them. And then with Long Beach, you got Tuaniga and DeFalco. And every single one of those guys I mentioned all been on the youth national team, got a lot of international experience. They all played together. One North Seca had a bunch of big matches under the belt before they even got to college. And so it's cool to see these guys driving the bus for their teams.
Let me ask you about, so this weekend, in the MPSF standing right now, it goes UCLA, which I think everybody expected to be good, Stanford, which might be a little better than everybody expected, then Hawaii, Long Beach, and BYU. And this weekend, Stanford goes to Long Beach on Friday, and UCLA goes to Hawaii for that back-to-back, because then Saturday it's UCLA at Hawaii again. Let's start there. How tough is that swing to just go there and then have to play them twice in 2 nights on their home court?
Well, it's one of those double-edged sword things. It's great to go to Hawaii. It's great because it's the best volleyball atmosphere, bar none, in the country for men's volleyball and for women's too. The local fan base in Hawaii is very knowledgeable, and they cheer not only for their team, but they cheer for good volleyball. So your team can be doing well, and there's a certain level of appreciation. If you're not a UH team, if you're doing well or you have guys that are popular there in Hawaii, then you're going to get some support, and you're going to feel that spirit of aloha that's normally there. And for us, during my time at SC, we recruited real well out of Hawaii, and we always had a few Hawaiians on our team. So for us, it was a very easy thing. If you have someone from Hawaii on your roster, which UCLA does with Micah Ma'a and Fisher, they're going to get a lot of love when they go over there. So it'll feel like home. The people, the families of the folks on the team there, they're going to probably I would assume they'll have a nice dinner at somebody's house, be able to go relax. And it also having the local guys be on your roster, they sort of help kind of educate, they sort of help educate the Howleys, if you will. And so you don't go over there with these big eyes and thinking, okay, I'm just going to sit on the beach, going to get sunburned and be terrible for my match. So, that was something that
you obviously dealt with that at some point or another. Let me ask you, so Stanford goes to Long Beach Friday, which is a really tough match, then goes to Northridge, and between the two, that's a
tough.
So
the Stanford and Long Beach is going to be real interesting, because right now I think I think Hawaii, UCLA probably. I think you'd have to have UCLA be the favorite there. So what maybe you think a split would be the worst for the Bruins. That would still leave them on top. It would still leave Hawaii a couple notches back. But whoever wins that Stanford-Long Beach State match pretty much sets themselves up to be kind of that next team. And, I don't know how much of a surprise Stanford was. Having to play against them last year, they were pretty darn good, and we knew who was coming up. You knew Rakestraw was going to come into the lineup. You knew Jordan Ewart had signed there, and Madison Hayden, I think, is the guy that really makes them go. Undersized outside hitter, but man, that guy's got a lot of fight in him, and he's getting the job done. But if you look behind the scenes, Long Beach State's in a really good position right now. They're done with BYU for the regular season and got a split, which is huge. They did that at home. And then the other big swing they had on the road was UC Santa Barbara, and then a couple days before that, UCLA. Now, they lost to UCLA in 5 at Pauley, and then they went up to Santa Barbara, which is a really tough place to play, and they won that in 5. And Long Beach, so when you think about they've got UCLA, they've got BYU over with, they got UCLA and Santa Barbara, 2 of the best teams in the league, on the road over with a split. And they're all doing this without Cody Martin, who is their starting out OH2. And, Ensing, one of the Ensing brothers, is playing outside for them. He passes real well. He blocks okay. But he's not as good an attacker as Martin. So when you look behind the story behind the story with Long Beach, I think they're in a real good position. If they can knock off Stanford, I would say they would look like the clear number 2 in the league going forward based on their schedule, who they have coming back from injury, and all the stuff that you can't really put on paper.
So covering all our bases, there are 3 teams. Those other 3 teams out of the top 9 that I talked about are number 4, Loyola Chicago, the 2-time defending champion, which might be a little bit better than we thought, especially with the coaching change right before and the loss of Thomas Jaski. And then Ohio State's 7, Penn State's 8. And I feel real comfortable in saying that if teams emerge from the other side, it would be one of those 3. Yeah. If you have anything to argue with me there, tell me. And then the last question I have for you is UC Irvine has to be disappointed at this point where it is.
Well, Irvine.
Go ahead.
So Irvine is, the talk at the beginning of the year that you and I had was they're going to need to figure out their passing. And right now, again, they have, a guy named Reed Dominguez on the floor who's got a fantastic arm, but really is in his first year in a starting outside hitter position. I don't know if he'll remain there. I mean, I would assume he would. But he, when the recruiting cycle with him, great arm, great kid, perfect, build for an outside hitter. But he's needed to work on his passing, and he's still kind of trying to find his way there. Hershko, as good as he is, still, he was kind of an opposite when he rolled in there last year. So he's in there, and then you got Russell on one of the pins, and Russell has been one of those great attackers that you need on the floor, but hasn't quite taken care of it passing-wise. And so while Niffen was able to find magic with his 3 opposite rotation last year and pass the ball, it's not working out quite that way. But I would venture to say Irvine's going to start picking it up. Those guys are going to get comfortable passing the ball, and you're going to see them start to win some matches during the stretch of the year. So I think that's the big one. Santa Barbara's kind of sitting in the weeds a little bit. They're awful good and awful experienced. Hawaii's going to get some wins at home. They're still trying to figure out their middle blocker position. But yeah, I think you're going to see a couple teams rise to the top. I think right now you're going to see UCLA continue to do well. I think Stanford is going to battle with Long Beach for that next group. And then BYU is going to have some proving to do. I think we all thought they were going to be fantastic, but again, we talked about serve receive for them, and it seems like that's a little bit of an issue. As you know, as Coach Olmstead tries to figure out his lineup, he's got a lot of guys out there, but he's got to find the right mix. I think BYU comes into that next group, if you will, and then it's going to get real muddy after that for sure.
All right. Well, the good part is that you make it clear, muddy as it is, and I always like talking to Coach Bill Ferguson. Bill, take care, and we will catch up soon.
All right. Thanks, Lee. Always a pleasure.